Suma Timu Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bara Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradar Suma Timu Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bara Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradar Suma Timu Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradar Suma Timu Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Suma Timu Nisha Sane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke Tudan Dagi Yi Yerme Chiktu Chingelu Makyuke Kudan Dagelu Makyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Makyuke Tukdan Dagi Ten Yerme Chiktu Chingelu Om Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamunye Swaha. Sangye Chodan Soge Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kepsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Trola Pinchre Sangye Drupa Resho Sangye Chodan Soge Chonamla Chanchu Pardo Dani Kepsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchre Sangye Drupa Resho Sangye Chedan Soge Chonamla Chancho Pardo Danik Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchre Sangye Drupa Resho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Sometimes I have been thinking and reflecting upon the fact of how much freedom do we actually have in our lives. And thinking about that, my own conclusion is that we really have very, very little freedom. Freedom from the point of view also of how much free will do we actually have. Okay? How much freedom of choices and so on. It's extremely small. What do I mean by that? Even though it's very small, it's very powerful. But still it's very small. Because are we free from our past? No. We are not free from our past. We are not free from the choices we made in the past. We are not free from the actions we did in the past. We are not free from the culture where we were born and where we grow up. We are not free from the mentality we have. We are not free from the body we have and its own hormones and the whole rest. We are not free from the education we received. We are not free from the traumas we had. We are not free from a lot of stuff. We are not free from our karma and so on. Okay? So, going directly to the point, is like when someone say, if I was in you, I would be doing differently. Okay, being yourself and being at the same time in the conditions which I am, sure you would be doing differently. But if we were to be in the place of the other person, okay, but at the same time, being the other person, how different would we do? If I was to be in your place, with your body, with your mentality, with the same education you received, with the same experiences you had, with the same karma you have, or that means being yourself, how different would I do? Not very different. Really not much different. So when we see someone acting in a certain way, we need to remember, first of all, that the person is fully conditioned by all the aspects of his life, which is his education, his mentality, all the experiences he went through, and everything else. Okay? So, our freedom is quite small from this point of view. We don't have the freedom to be something that we are not. We don't have the freedom suddenly to say, I want to be a Buddha in one instant, and then we become. I'm sorry, you are not yet there. So you can become one, but let's work gradually on the path, no? So, from one side, it may look like, okay, there is no free will. Because if we say, if I was you, I would do exactly the same thing, it means there is no free will. It means we are only the simple result of conditions. Okay? And there are people that think in this way. Okay? And if we analyze, it may look like this quite strongly. It's not that we have no free will. We do have free will, but our free will is really very small. Okay? I don't want to go into many details on this point right now. We could go on and on about it, but there are many things that we are so influenced and we are so conditioned and we have even no any idea about it. Okay? Anyhow, our freedom lies at the very present moment, in very, very small actions. That's where our freedom lies. Are we free in front of a situation to say something or to shut our mouth? Not to say it? Yes. We are free to manifest a thought or not to manifest it. We are free to manifest an emotion or not manifest that emotion. We are free to say, okay, I go or I don't go. I do or I don't do. I do like this or I do like that. We are free in many ways. But our freedom lies in the very present moment in our actions of body, speech, and mind. That's where our freedom lies. Okay? That's where our free will lies. And it's very powerful because if we imagine one line, and we can just change that line for half a degree, in the long term, how much distance that half degree makes? A very big distance. Okay? And imagine if we can add half degrees as along we go the path, then we can make a really big difference, okay? So basically, what happened is that every day, every moment, every instant is where our freedom lies. We don't have the freedom to be something completely different from what we are, to be free from our past, to be free from our body, to be free from our mentality, from the education we received, from the traumas we had, and so on. We are not free from our karma and so on. But we are free in the present moment to use all these conditions we have in many different ways. We are free to say, okay, with this complex conditions that I have, with the resources that I have, good and bad, what can I do? Making a metaphor that I don't like very much, but I think is quite clear. It's like, we are not free to buy something that we have no money for. But we are free to choose what to buy with the money we have within the things that are for sale. Okay? And we are free to buy or not to buy. Okay? Similarly, we are not free from the conditions. We are not free from all the resources that we have, which means body, mind, environment, conditions around us. We are not free from all of that. But we are free at every present moment of how to relate to all of this. Okay? And here comes a very important, because this is a very powerful thing. Because what happens is that at the present moment, in the moment that we change every action that we do, okay, like I'm free to choose, do I take the medicine or not? Better, yes. Okay. So, my tendency will be not, but anyhow, what happened is the following. We are made out of habits. That's a very important thing to understand. Most of our actions, most of our choices, they are not made out of understanding. They are made out of habits. Okay? We have physical habits, verbal habits, and mental habits. So, how many times we do not avoid something that we know that is negative, and we do it? Because we have the habit of doing it. How many times we actually don't do something that we know that is positive? How many times we don't do something that we know that is positive? Because we don't have the habit for it. Okay? So, most of the times, the way how we react, the actions that we have, the way of our mind, is mostly based on habit. So, there are two ways how we can deal with habit, how we can change it. Okay? And the whole process of the Dharma is very much connected into changing our habits. You know, great part of the path of the Dharma is like walking against the current. Changing our habits, making new positive habits, avoiding negative habits. It's very much to do with our habits, actually. Okay? So, how does that work? Basically, the two aspects are, the first one, morality. Morality means our ability to keep our commitments. So, we make commitments in order to avoid our habits. Why do we need to make commitments? Why do we need to take vows? Simply because we are made out of habits. So, for example, one habit which is a mental and verbal habit. Let's start with the verbal aspect of it. The habit of complaining. To complain is a habit, actually. The more we complain, the more we will complain. Okay? I have seen people complaining even because things are too good. Okay? I remember one time we arrived in Tibet, and we were a big group. And at that time when traveling to Tibet, you never knew really in which hotel you would stay, because the travel agency, they could just change the hotel in the last minute. You pay for one thing, you never know what you get. Okay? So normally the problem would be we try to book a nice hotel, and when we get there, we get a bad hotel. This was very common. And people would complain about that. Then one year we arrived in Lhasa, and we paid for a standard hotel, more or less, good standard hotel, and they gave us one of the best hotels in Lhasa. And then it was like, wow, how nice. Then some people start to complain the hotel was too good. And what were we doing there? And so on, no? And it was quite nice to see this mechanism of the mind, to see this habit of complaining. That it actually, we have the habit of complaining, generally speaking, okay? Then there are people that simply, it becomes a habit, so it doesn't matter what it is, what it's not. It's like even when everything is so good, oh, how wonderful, yes, it's beautiful, but this is not like this, that is not like, that could be better. It's good, but it could be better, It's a matter of habits. So the point is that complaining, it's a habit. Okay? So how do we change a habit? One way is we make commitments. I will not complain anymore. So, the moment we start verbally, because to control the mind is more difficult, to control the speech is more easy. Not easy, but it's more easy, less difficult, let's say. So we make the commitment, I will not complain verbally. So when we see that we are about to say something, better to bite your tongue. I don't say it because I made a commitment to myself. That's the power of commitment. That's the power of vows. I make a commitment, I keep my commitment. I will not complain. So I don't say anything about that. Okay. And what happened? Gradually, the less we complain, the less we will complain. Slowly we train ourselves not to follow that habit. Okay? It is not easy. There is a moment in which it's really hard, and then it's like the mind going from the other side. Like, I share one experience I had. There is one commitment I took one time, which was, I have no need to share with others, not to share, but to not share, to say the good things I do. But this is something we shouldn't do, generally speaking. If I do something good, I do because I think it's good, and that's all. I don't need to say to people, do you know what something good I did, to try to have some sort of recognition, in that context. Then one time I woke up in the morning, and I did something I was wanting to do since a long time, something nice, good, and I was quite happy about it. So I was happy that I did what I wanted to do, and it was like that. So I went to the kitchen at Rinpoche's house. I never take breakfast normally. At that time, not at all. This time, sometimes, that time I would never take breakfast. And that day I went to the breakfast table in the kitchen. I was happy. And I sat around, and there were some people there, and we started talking. And then naturally it was coming to say that thing. And then I just was saying to myself, no, don't need, shut up, change argument. Okay, change subject, go down. Then I was talking, then suddenly came again, no, don't say. Okay, I did it for 2-3 times. Then I was talking about whatever, it came out. Then suddenly there you are, it just bluff. I said. And then our mind is terrible because as I started to say, I must finish now, no? Okay? Instead, not. It was very good because for me it was so clear the whole process. And the most crazy thing was while I was seeing it happen, I couldn't stop it. Okay? This is a habit. So, we need to repeat it again and again. This was for me very good because at that moment it was something that I could see so clear afterwards, which showed me the pathways of the mind, and then we can block that pathways for that not to happen again. Okay? But when we make a commitment, we will find many ways how to break that commitment. So we need to be stable on our commitment. This is one of the very important things. One of the important aspects of the path is morality. All Buddha's teachings are divided into morality, concentration, and wisdom. Morality is our ability to keep our commitments. So this is really something very, very important. We should keep our commitments. This is one way of changing habits. Okay? We have 2 types of commitments in this case. One is the commitment to avoid something negative, and the other is the commitment to do something positive. Okay? I take the commitment, I would sit every day and do 5 minutes of meditation. I wake up in the morning, I don't want to meditate. What I do? I sit down and I meditate. Even though the meditation comes out bad, I do it. Why? Because I have a commitment. And then this will give the possibility the next day to make a better meditation. If I do not keep the commitment, then forget about it. Okay? The second way of changing our habits is basically generating a mind that is opposite to the mind that we want to avoid and change. Okay? Because our mind has a very particular aspect, that is, we are not able to have two directly opposite thoughts at the same time. No? We're not able to have two thoughts with direct opposite mode of apprehension at the same time. For example, I'm not able to think at the same time I like water and I don't like water. Try it. Try to think at the same time I like water and I don't like water. It's not possible. Okay. We can be able to think at the same time I like the taste of the water, but I don't like the temperature. This is possible because they are not directly opposite. Okay? So, if I have the mind I don't like water, what shall I do in order to eliminate that mind? If I try to throw that mind away, it doesn't work. It sticks back. Instead, I need to generate the thought, I like water. So how do I do that? I'm going to think about the qualities of water. I'm going to reflect about how beneficial water it is for me. I'm going to remember the good experiences I had with water. I'm going to try some water in a good context so I can have a good experience with it. And slowly all of this will bring me to the thought, I like water. As soon as I generate the thought, I like water, what happens to the thought, I don't like water? It fades away. It cannot sustain itself in the moment that there is an opposite thought which is being generated. So, to eliminate certain thoughts, we need to generate an opposite one. But what happens? I'm able to induce myself to the thought, I like water. Very good. Then suddenly that thought finishes. No? At a certain point, I finish to think I like water. Then what comes back again? I don't like water. Why? Because it's a habit. Then what I need to do? Reflect again upon why water is good for me, remember the experiences and so on until I can generate again the thought, I like water. The more I do it, the easier it becomes. Okay? It's like if I'm always sitting in a wrong position and then I have always my back not straight and this is giving me problem. And I see, oh no, I need to sit in a different way. It's not coming natural, but then I think, oh no, sit straight. Okay. Maybe in the beginning it's uncomfortable, we are not used to it, but we put an effort, we sit straight. Next time, okay, again, come on. The more I do, slowly, it becomes a habit. Okay? So the way of opposing ourselves to negative habits is creating positive habits, direct opposite habits. Okay? How do you create a habit? By repeating. I can stay the whole day saying repeating. Okay? The path to enlightenment, the spiritual path, is not a linear path. It's not we go through the same thing only once. We go through the same thing again and again. It's more like a spiral. But not a spiral that goes inside. Imagine a circle that goes always again around the same place, but that slowly goes up. Okay? So if we look from above on a two-dimensional level, it looks like we are doing exactly the same thing all the time. But if we look from a three-dimensional from the side, what we will see? That actually we are not doing the same thing. We are going up gradually. Okay? So we do the same meditation again and again and again and again. But it's not exactly the same meditation. Even though we say the same words, even though we do the same thing, it's not the same. Okay. So how is the path actually working inside Buddhist path? It's worked basically on what we call listening, comprehending, and meditating. In Tibetan it's called Tösam Gomsum. Whatever quality we want to develop, whatever positive habit we want to make, we must go through these three processes, which is first we listen. We go through the teachings, we read in a book, we receive information. For instance, we can listen about the importance of developing love. Okay? And why and how we should develop love. Then, second step, comprehend. Comprehend means when we have such an understanding based on logics and an experience that we have no any more doubt about that point. It is our own knowledge. It's not anymore something that we repeat that someone else told us. Why I believe it's important to develop love? Because I have my own experience and I have my own understanding about that. It's not because the Lama or Buddha or whoever told me something. Okay? It's a second step of comprehending. Once we have comprehended, it's a good step, but it's not enough. Then we need to start a longer part, which is to meditate. Meditate in the context of familiarizing ourselves. We need to induce ourselves to that state of mind in order for it to become more and more natural. So we need to do it again and again and again and again until it becomes a habit. And that's how we change ourselves. That's how we change our mind. That's how we grow on the path. Okay? So, we are these days reading the text of the 7 points mind training. We have been these last days on the first point of the 7, which means practice the preliminaries, train yourself in the preliminaries. Just to remember, the preliminaries are relying correctly upon the Guru, the awareness of the preciousness of this life, the awareness of impermanence, death, the certainty of death and the uncertainty of the moment of death. Then we have the law of karma, understanding and believing and following the law of karma. And the 5th is undertaking refuge, which takes the part of understanding the general and specific sufferings of samsara and wishing to get out of it and looking at Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, the path of the Dharma, as the path to get out of samsara. Okay? These are the preliminaries. Now today we will start the second point, which is how to train ourselves in the mind of enlightenment, which is divided into 2 parts, which is the relative mind of enlightenment and the absolute mind of enlightenment. Relative mind of enlightenment means how to train ourselves in developing love and compassion. Absolute mind of enlightenment, how to train ourselves, how to develop wisdom. Okay? The aspect of vows and commitments is the point number 6 and 7 of the 7 points, which we will see in a few days' time. Okay? So now we go to that point. On the path of this process of learning, comprehending and meditating, the path of Buddha's teachings, the path of Buddhism, basically from my understanding, we have listening, comprehending, meditating, and then we have different tools and methods for the actual meditation, for the actual familiarization. One of these methods are the so-called sadhanas that we do. Okay? So, as we have the preliminary practices, as we have the Guru Puja, self-healing, and many other techniques that are there to help us to generate certain states of consciousness and certain ways of thinking and so on, in order to familiarize ourselves with it. And it really works in that sense. So we have very practical, specific tools to develop these states of mind and so on. That's why when we talk about doing one sadhana, it's not like do once in a lifetime and it's done. It's repeat many times again, because we need to create a positive familiarization. We need to familiarize ourselves with something. We need to create a positive habit. That's why, and it's an inner mental habit. That's why we need to repeat it again and again. Okay? We go to the text of the 7 points mind training, which we have here in page number 39. Okay. Now I would like just to read the first part of the text and then go to the point of developing the mind of awakening. So, tukje chenpo la cha zelo menga dute nimbo di serlimpa ne gyubo yin dorje nima junshi shi shundon la so shebarcha Nyema ngabo debadi janjulam to gyurwa yin. Homage to great compassion. The essence of this nectar of secret instruction is transmitted from the master of Sumatra. The text was written at the 12th century by one great master called Geshe Chekawa. And later, in the next centuries, many versions of this text developed in Tibet. They were mostly very similar, but here one word was a little different here, another word was a little different there. There was not like one official printing version. Everything was done by hand. So they were different versions appeared. So in the 19th century, actually begin 20th century, Kyabche Papunka Rinpoche, who was the guru of Lama Ganchen, the guru of Trichan Rinpoche, and at his time there was a guru of all the gurus basically, inside the Gelugpa tradition, of all the masters or practitioners. It was requested to Papunka Rinpoche to make one version of the text that was the most coherent one. Because a very important text, but there were different versions available. So, Papunka Rinpoche, he took all the available versions, he put them together, and then he compared the versions to the commentaries on the 7-point mind training, which were done by the great masters, starting from the teachings coming from Lama Tsongkhapa, and after Yonzin Yeshe Gyaltsen, and there were some very, very important commentaries. Some of them have 1,500 pages. So he went through all the commentaries, and he made one version which was coherent with all the commentaries according to the Gelugpa tradition, and then he put together all of them into one final version of the text. So this is the version that we are following, okay? And he added in between the words, like if you look at the Tibetan, you can see that some parts the text is in a bigger letters and some parts the letter is a bit smaller. This is because the smaller letters are the words that were added by Papunka Rinpoche in between, okay? So he added titles and some small explanations and commentaries in between. So in the translation, everything that is in italic or in bold was added by Papunka Rinpoche, okay? And everything that is in a normal character, it is the actual original text, all right? So, the text starts making praise to compassion. There are different reasons why a master starts making praise in a text. One of the reasons is of humbleness, humility in the beginning. Another reason is to accumulate merit in order to be able to fulfill the composition of the text. Another reason is to show that at the very beginning of the path we need to rely correctly upon the guru. And another reason is to show also what is the text going to talk about. So normally by looking at the initial praise, not all the time, but very often, we can have some idea about what is the subject that is going to be talked in the whole text. So normally all the teachings of Buddha were divided into three main subjects, which were morality, concentration, and wisdom. So depending on the praise that was done in the beginning, you knew what was the subject that the text was going to talk about, okay? So in this case, it's homage to compassion. So what is the text talking about mainly? Development of bodhicitta. The development of love and compassion. So the development of bodhicitta. Okay. The essence of this nectar, of this secret instruction, is transmitted from the master of Sumatra. These teachings were kept secret for many centuries, and here they are bringing, Geshe Chekawa is putting the essence of these teachings, and at the same time, they came to us. We received these teachings, I received them from different masters, from Panchen Lobsang. I received these teachings, the transmission, also from my teachers in Tibet, from Panchen Lobsang Chokyi. I received it from my teacher in India. I received this transmission also from Dragon Rinpoche. I received from different masters the transmission. They received from their masters, and like this we go on back to Geshe Chekawa, and like this we can go on. But where did this lineage originally came from in Tibet? It arrived through the great master Atisha. Atisha, that we have depicted there on my right side with the red head. Atisha, on the beginning of the 11th century, he came to Tibet, and he received his teachings from the Lama coming from Suvarnadipa. which was an island in Sumatra, Indonesia. So he went there, that's where he received these teachings, that he kept secret. Then he transmitted them to Dromtompa. Dromtompa transmitted them to Geshe Potoa. Geshe Potoa transmitted them to Geshe Sharawa. Geshe Sharawa transmitted these teachings to Geshe Chekawa. And Geshe Chekawa put them in words so that we can read them. Okay? And then this was transmitted from master to disciple until it reaches us today. You should understand the significance of this instruction as like a diamond, the sun, and a medicinal tree. This means a diamond is said to be, these are three metaphors which represents a diamond. It doesn't matter how small it is, and even if you break the diamond into parts and you just get one small part of the diamonds, the brightness of the diamond is still much higher. It will overwhelm the brightness of any other precious stone. Similar to that, the technique of the mind training, it doesn't matter. Even if we practice just a small part of it, it overwhelms the brightness, the strength of selfishness. It can overwhelm our selfishness, even if we practice just a small part of it. It is like the sun, because when we have the sun rays, imagine a complete dark room, even a small little sun rays coming in the room can dissipate away darkness. Similar to that, only a small part of the mind training done in the correct way can dissipate away the darkness of ignorance and selfishness. Then it is like a medicinal tree, because just like one whole medicinal tree can cure a disease just by one small part of its root, or but only one leaf can cure a disease. Similar to that, only one part of these teachings, really put into practice correctly, can cure the disease of selfishness. Okay? Then, this time of the 5 degenerations will be then transformed into the path to the fully awakened state. This means that one of the great qualities of these teachings is that this training, more than the teaching, these trainings of mind, of transforming the mind, developing love and wisdom, have been given in a certain way that we don't need to wait the right conditions in order to practice. Actually, we can practice it in any context, in any moment, any place, any situation we are. And actually, the worse are the conditions, the better we can practice. We will see this later, okay? But it has this specific quality. So we live in times of degeneration. There are 5 degenerations here, which is we have the degeneration of time itself. So time has always less value. Things goes faster. We have less time as things goes on. We don't need to go in details on that right now, but we live in a period where we have less and less time. So there is a degeneration of time. There is a degeneration of the sentient beings, which means more and more we have our defilements more and more manifested strongly. We have the degeneration of sickness. We have more and more new sicknesses coming, and stronger and more difficult to cure. We have the degeneration of medicine, the inability of the medicines to cure the diseases more and more. We have the degeneration of the food, which is the food that is each time more and more less able to give balance and to give nutrition to the body. Okay? So I think it's quite clear that we live in times of these 5 degenerations. Okay? So this means difficult conditions. But how wonderful to have a practice that can be done in the time of the generations. And the more the generation we have, the more difficult it is, the better we can practice it. That's why I say these teachings can transform this period of the 5 degenerations into the path to enlightenment. So this is something like, it's incredible. And when we look to it, it's so clear. It's just a matter of wanting to train ourselves in it or not. But there is no excuse not to do it. Really, when we go through it, okay? There is no any situations, oh, I have too much work. I am sick. I have this, I have that. Nothing is an excuse not to practice Lojong. We will go through that later, okay? But this is a very important point. Then it continues, then it starts the 7th point. First, train in the preliminaries. train yourself in relying correctly upon the spiritual guide, the Guru, in developing the awareness of the preciousness of this life, developing the awareness of our own mortality, certainty of death, uncertainty of the moment of death, developing the certainty of the law of karma, taking refuge, recognizing that take refuge from samsara, understanding suffering as suffering, seeing samsara clearly, and taking refuge in the three jewels, in the path to enlightenment, in the Dharma. Okay? So this is the two aspects of taking refuge. So, train in the preliminaries. Second point is the actual practice of the mind training. And here, the actual practice of the mind training, it is developed into two trainings, which is to train ourselves in what is called relative bodhicitta and absolute bodhicitta. Bodhi means enlightenment, citta means mind. So train ourselves in the mind of enlightenment, or the awakening mind. The mind of enlightenment is of two types, the relative mind of enlightenment and the absolute mind of enlightenment. In making it simple, train in the relative mind of enlightenment, which means develop love and compassion, and the determination to develop oneself in order to help others. And train in absolute mind of enlightenment, it means train yourself in wisdom. Okay, the correct view of reality. Now, originally, this text was taught first the development of wisdom, and second the development of love and compassion. First come the training of wisdom, and then come the training of love and compassion. Later, Pabungka Rinpoche, he changed the order, and he explains here why even. In the end of page number 39, there is the explanation of why. What happens is the following. Originally, since India and so on, the teachings had two different approaches mainly. Or maybe three, but normally we divide into two, okay? It said the approaches were done in accordance to the capacity of the disciples. We say Wambo Nötul, which means the disciples that have a higher intellectual capacity and a lower intellectual capacity. Okay? So to those that had a higher intellectual capacity, it was given teachings in one way, there was one approach. To those that had a lower intellectual capacity, will have a different approach. What is the difference mainly? The higher intellectual capacity disciples, first they need truly to understand. Then they believe. And then they follow. The lower capacity, if they need first to understand it, they were not even able to understand right away. So first they believe, then they follow, then they understand. Okay? It's like, I will explain you need to go walking from here to that place. One will not even make one step before understanding where he needs to go, why he needs to go there and everything. And once he understands, then he follows well. The other one, after some time, is convinced and he says, okay, I start walking, I go. Then as he goes, he starts understanding why he's going and where he's going. Okay? The point is that for those with a higher capacity, first was taught emptiness, the correct view of reality. Then was taught renunciation, taking refuge, bodhicitta, and all the rest. Because actually, it is not possible to understand clearly what is a Buddha, to understand clearly what is samsara, to understand clearly what is liberation from samsara, without having understood before emptiness. Okay? That's why in the past centuries, all the teachings were given for low-capacity disciples, basically, And we are part of it. I recognize myself also as being part of it. Because if we need first to understand very well emptiness and after we can go through it, it becomes very difficult. So the lower capacity approach is, first, we explain what we need to do, where we need to go, and then we go through that, and we believe in it, and we start following. And then slowly we understand it clearly. Okay? So these are the two different approaches. So that's why on the lower capacity approach, first we go through compassion, love, and so on. And then after that, we develop the wisdom of understanding the true reality of phenomena. So, the true nature of reality, emptiness. So, originally the text was written for the higher capacity, high intellectual capacity, but later it was adapted to ourselves, which means the lower capacity, okay? And I see that nowadays in the West, we try to have an approach which is a mixture of the two. We explain, we go, but at the same time we try to understand it. So we have the two approaches together, okay? So this is like, there's a lot of discussion about these two approaches. We can stay hours and days debating about it, but putting in a few words is like this. That's why Papunka Rinpoche has inverted the order of the text. And he have added first the development of love and then after that of wisdom. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? Well, okay. So then we move on. I will just read this first part and then after we give the explanation. Lelen tamche chigla da kunla kadrin chewa gom tongle nibo pelmarjan lelen ko lembe koren ramnetsam teni longla kyombarcha yulsum tuksum gezasum jegi menga dordepa tela jembe kulwe chircholam kundu tsigi jang. Banish the one to blame for everything. Meditate on the great kindness of all beings. Practice a combination of giving and taking. Giving and taking should be practiced alternately. And you should begin by taking from yourself. This too should be made to ride on the breath. Concerning the three objects, three poisons and three virtues, the instruction to be followed in short is to be mindful of the practice in general by taking this word to heart and in all activities. Okay? It's a lot of concept put in very few words, okay? So now we'll go one line by one to try to understand better what it means. What is the instructions here? So, the first point, which we are not going very much in details about this. As I said in the first day, the 7 points, my training to explain it really in details need maybe 6 months, I don't know. You know, the commentary is 1,500 pages long. But we'll try to go through it, not in too much details. So, banish the one to blame for everything. Who is the one to blame for everything? Others. No? Normally, who do we blame for everything? Maybe the politicians. I don't know. You know, we have the tendency to blame others mostly. But who is truly the one to blame for everything? Selfishness. It's not myself. I am not the one to blame for everything. No. The one to blame for everything is selfishness. Okay? Selfishness, or which is this attitude of obsession for self-gratification. The self-cherishing mind. This obsession of self-gratification. That's the one to blame for everything. That's the one that is causing all the suffering and the conflicts that we live in. Okay? We need to recognize that. We need to understand how selfishness is creating suffering. So let's try to see a little bit the mechanism of selfishness itself. Remembering that selfishness is this attitude in which we are the center of everything and we see everything through the I and the mind. So are we selfish or not? I am. You know, you can check for yourself. But one of the easy ways to see if we are or we are not selfish is understanding that when I need to make a choice, which is my reference? The I and the mind or the whole? The I and the mind. When I need to make a judgment, what is my reference to say it's good or bad? The I and the mind or the whole? The I and the mind. So I am selfish. Okay. So, we need to start from where we are. We cannot expect to become non-selfish from one moment to the other. It's useless to blame, I'm selfish, that's too bad. I am selfish, out of being selfish, we can become non-selfish. That's possible, actually, okay? That's the whole training it's all about, but we start from where we are. That's why, selfishly speaking, from where we are, it's much better to be altruistic. That's what we need to understand. Thinking of our own well-being is better to be free from this obsession. Out of this obsession, we see the world through the lenses of selfishness, and we divide the world into 3 categories. Okay? There are 2 things to help us to understand better selfishness, which are the 9 objects and the 3 attitudes of selfishness, which are the 9 objects. They can be people, situation, places, objects. Okay? So it works in the following way. Everything, those that are of benefit to me are my friends. Okay? Those that are of benefit for my friends are also my friends. The friend of my friend is my friend. Those that are the enemy of my enemy, those that are harming my enemy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay? Then, I have those that harm me are my enemy. Those that harm my friends are my enemy. And the friends of my enemies are my enemies. Those that are benefiting my enemies become my enemies. Those that are not benefiting nor harming myself, my friends, or my enemies are indifferent. Okay? So we divide reality in these 9 categories, which basically it's 3 multiplied by 3. But we divide reality into friends, enemies, and indifferent. People, situation, places, objects. Okay? Then, towards friends, we have attraction. Towards enemies, we have aversion. Towards indifferent, we have indifference. Okay? From attraction comes attachment, desire, insatisfaction. It comes also aversion, actually, out of attraction, and fear, anxiety, and so on. Out of aversion, we get anger, hatred, aggression, fear, anxiety, and so on. Violence, okay? So, and out of indifference, actually, we get the attitude of indifference itself, which is a form of violence also. Anyhow, this is the 9 objects and the way how we relate to the 9 objects. Then we have the 3 attitudes of selfishness. The 3 attitudes of selfishness, they are to all the 9 objects. It doesn't matter if it's a friend, if it's an enemy, or if it's indifferent. We have these 3 attitudes, which are towards those that have something more than we do. Let's take for something that we think is good. Let's take, for instance, beauty, or money, or power, or attention from someone we like, whatever. So towards those that receive more attention than I receive, I have envy. Towards those that have more money than I have, I am envy. Towards those that have the same level as I me, they are not superior. I don't see them as having more. I see them as being the same level as me. What I do? I compete with them. I must be better. I must have more. So I compete. And towards those that have less, I act with arrogance. Okay? So basically, independently if it's our friend, if it's our enemy, or if we are indifferent, we are always acting, most of the times we are acting with. Through selfishness, we act with envy, competition, and arrogance. We never relax. It's so tiring, actually, no? So we can see, and these are 3 attitudes that are very tiring, actually. Okay? So, Where is all this coming from? The competition, the envy, the jealousy, the arrogance, then the miserliness, and everything else we can put inside of it. It's coming from selfishness. It's coming from centering ourselves being the center of everything. Okay? What happens when a friend starts harming us? Becomes enemy. And what happens when an enemy starts benefiting us? Becomes friend. Okay? So it's all based on the I and the mine. We're all based on that centered attitude that we have. Now, if we look at the conflicts that exist in the world, starting from our own personal conflicts, starting from the conflicts we have with our friends, the conflicts we have in family, the conflicts we have in the work, and so on, okay? Up to reach the international conflicts of wars and so on. All these conflicts could be solved by simply eliminating selfishness. If I have a conflict with you, and at a certain point, your happiness is priority to me, and my happiness is priority to you, we find a meeting point between us. No doubt. No doubt. Sure, we have different ideas. We are different, But we can find a point of balance between us. Because your happiness is so important for me as is mine, and vice versa. So, selfishly speaking, it's better to be altruistic. But what does it mean to be altruistic? It doesn't mean to eliminate completely the I and the mine. Because now we live mostly in a dualistic way, in which when we are doing something for others is a sacrifice. A good sacrifice, I'm doing something for others. When we are doing something for ourselves, we may feel guilty that we are doing something for ourselves. Because ideally we need to take care of others. So we live in this dualistic conflict. Okay, that's why the process is first to develop equanimity. So we call it equalizing and exchanging self with others. That's the process. Okay, equalizing and exchanging self with others. To equalize, it means to develop equanimity, and equanimity in this context means when I do something for others, I am doing it also for myself. When I do something for myself, I am also doing it for others. To have the same attitude, to give the same value for my happiness and the happiness of others. To give the same value for my suffering and the suffering of others. I don't make anymore this distinction between the I, the my, and the others. Okay? So, it's like, when I am doing something to help other people, it's not a sacrifice because I'm so happy to do something for others. And when I'm doing something for myself, so good that I'm doing something for myself, because by that I can develop more stability, more health, I can be better, so I can help better others, no? How can I help you if I am not well? It's not possible. So, if I really love you and I really want to help you, I must also take care of myself so I can take better care of you. Okay? So, when I am putting effort, sitting there, doing my meditation to develop my qualities, I am doing something for myself, but I'm also doing something for others. When I'm going there and helping someone that I see sick or in whatever way, listening to someone that needs to have a comfort, or whatever way I'm helping someone, I'm also doing it for myself. Because by helping others, I develop my qualities, and also because I believe, I love you, so I'm doing something for you, which is also for me. Okay? So the objective is, first we need to take away this difference between doing something for ourselves and doing something for others, understanding that when we do for others, we do also for ourselves, when we do for ourselves, we do also for others. Equalizing ourselves with others. Which means the attitude, the value that we give for ourselves and others is the same. The priority of happiness of ourselves and others is the same. We don't make any more difference between the two. Okay? It's not an easy process, but it's an important one. So this is the first step. We recognize selfishness as the root of all suffering. Not the root, the main cause of all suffering. The root is ignorance, but as the main cause of suffering. So we need to blame. Whenever something negative happens, why am I suffering? Why there is conflict? Who is the one to blame? Selfishness. Not others' selfishness, okay? Our own. Because then it's easy, we can go around and say, yes, selfishness, your selfishness, his selfishness, everyone's selfishness. That's what is created. It's also true. But where do I need to point my finger? To my own selfishness, which is creating my own suffering. Your selfishness is creating your suffering. My selfishness plus your selfishness makes two sufferings and a big conflict, okay? So, the point is that my suffering is coming from where? From my own selfishness. Because selfishness will naturally bring the attitude of attraction and aversion. If I was not selfish, would I make the difference between friend and enemy? Not anymore. Not having the difference between friend and enemy, I would not have anymore this strong attitude of attraction and aversion, which would not bring me anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and so on. Okay? So, the difficulty here is that what Buddha is asking us, what is teaching us, what these teachings brings to us, is not an understanding, but a change of paradigm. To change our paradigm, the change of paradigm, it's like changing the way how we see reality. Now we blame others. Next step, blame selfishness. Which is not blaming myself, it's blaming the selfishness. And there is a difference between the two. There is a big difference actually. Okay? So, this is the first step, as it says here. Banish the one to blame for everything. Do not give space for selfishness. Do not give value for selfishness. Do not justify selfishness. Remember, this is something to abandon. Get to the conclusion. Selfishly speaking, it's better to be altruistic. I don't want it. Okay? And it's very interesting for me because what these teachings do to us is they use selfishness to eliminate selfishness. Because are we selfish or not? Yes. So do we want our own happiness? Yes. So in the moment that we understand that the best thing for our own happiness is to be altruistic and to eliminate selfishness, what are we doing? We are using selfishness to eliminate selfishness. Okay? So the point for us is that we need to understand deeply that this is really harming us, that this is really not good for us. And once we understand it clearly, then we'll put the effort to change it. That's why, banish the one to blame for everything. So, who is the one to blame for everything? Our obsession with self-gratification. That's what is actually blaming us. If we look, I am not happy. Most of the times when we say, I am not happy, who is behind? Selfishness. Most of the times when we say, I am angry, who is behind? Selfishness. Most of the time when we say, oh, you are bad, or this, who is behind? The selfishness. When we are victims, when we are villains, it doesn't matter. Wherever we look, who is behind? Selfishness. And the other important thing is that myself personally, I had this precious experience of meeting wonderful people. But the people with most stability, joy, inner peace, the most people that have the qualities that we want to develop, the people that are really better in life, are the people that have more altruistic mind. The less selfish they are, the more happy they are normally. On the other side, the more selfish people are, the more they suffer. This is what for me I can see in many, many examples, in many, many situations. The more we are obsessed and the more space we give to this obsession with the I and the my, the more we see ourselves as a victim, the more we live reality in conflict, and the more we suffer. It's like, in other words, this is put in the text of the Guru Puja when it says, Dorna chiparandon konadan tubon shindo bashin zeba yukunda yunde yewa jebelo dashin yamjin nubra jingilop. Please bless me so that I may exchange myself with others by understanding that, but the order is a bit different. The text says, the infantile beings act only for their own benefit, while the Buddhas act only for the benefit of others. Please bless me so that I may understand the benefits of one and the faults of the other, and by that equalize and exchange myself with others. Okay? So, if we look, we put sentient being and we put a Buddha. Who do we want to follow? Okay, let's make a different example. We put a person which represents for us in flesh and bone stability like our Guru Lama Rinpoche. Okay, and I can have many people. I have an example. Luckily, I met not so many, but I met quite many people that have an example of qualities we want to develop. Okay, then we put Lama Rinpoche on one side, and then we put another person. Then we have many people that we can choose. Choose anyone you like. Okay, many other can be on the other side. Okay, one is selfish and the other one is altruistic. Which one we want to follow? Which one is a better example of what we want to become? You know, what do we want to be when we grow up? That's the direction we need to put ourselves. So when we look at the altruistic people, let's make another example which is from our society more well known, Mother Teresa. When I met her, together with Rinpoche in 95 in Calcutta, such a person with such great joy, so peaceful. She was a selfish person or a more altruistic person? Altruistic. And she was so happy, so peaceful. Then we have so many examples of people with a lot of selfishness that have gained the objectives they wanted, the selfish objectives. They got a lot of power, they got a lot of money, they got a lot of influence, they became the beauty, whatever. And they, very often, they suffer like hell. Who do we want to follow? That's the question, you know. So based on this also, we still say, okay, selfishness is to be abandoned. That's not something good for me. So this is the first step. Recognize selfishness as the cause of all our suffering and equalize oneself with others. Recognize that the first step is, okay, I take care of myself, I take care of you, I take care of you, I take care of myself. You means everyone. When we are able to put this together. You know? So, because we cannot be well if everyone is not well somehow also, you know, in this society and in this world where we live. So also we need to take care of the common needs. So the more we take care of others, the more we take care of ourselves. The more we love others, the better we are. So this is the first step of our mind training. Okay? So we conclude here for today. And just remember well that we need to train ourselves to eliminate our selfishness. It's a matter of training. It's a matter of listening, comprehending, and meditating, familiarizing ourselves with the fact that the main cause of our suffering is our own selfishness. So it's not just a game of words. It's something very deep when we say that selfishly speaking is better to be altruistic. Because we need to start walking from the place where we are. It's like if I say, I want to go to Bodh Gaya. Oh yes, but it would be easier if, now I am in Albagnano, but it would be easier if I would already be in Delhi or I would already be in Patna, let's say. Sure, it would be easier if I was already in Patna, which is the most nearest, not the most near, but one of the nearest cities to Bodh Gaya. But where I am now? In Albagnano. Very lucky of me that I'm here, but if I want to go to Bodh Gaya, what I need to do, I need to start from where I am. So are we selfish or not? Yes, and that's fine. Which means we don't need to blame ourselves for that. That's why when we talk about recognizing the faults of selfishness, it's not like how bad I am because I am selfish, I shouldn't do this, and then we are there blaming ourselves, I need to be punished for my selfishness. No. We need to how to say in English, accogliere. We need somehow, together to embrace. We need to receive, to embrace ourselves instead of rejecting ourselves or blaming ourselves, okay? We need to embrace and direct. That's the main thing. So, how do I start from the point of being selfish? Understanding that selfishly speaking, it's better to be altruistic. It's actually something very, very important. I need to understand that for my own personal benefit, it's better that I give priority to others together with me. I create this equanimity between me and others, and I take care of others. I become less obsessed with the I and the mine. This is important also for me. Okay? Because now I am selfish, so I need to start from this point in order to change. That's why first thing, recognize the one to blame for everything is selfishness. Okay? So we conclude here for today. Jetsu lame kutse rapten chi namkar chinle chochur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyurchi Nimo dele tsendele, nime kuyan delekshi, ninsen taktu delekpe, koncho sumke jingilo, koncho sumge ngodruptsol, koncho sumge trashishu. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.